A number of Iranian missiles fell inside Israeli territory, causing minor damage.
It's one of the worst feelings ever, knowing something will happen, but not knowing when. Israelis experienced that feeling for most of last week. The Iranian military was poised to strike them, but no one knew when. Well, late last night it happened. Hundreds of projectiles were fired towards Israel. We're talking about a cocktail of weapons. Israel counted more than 300 of them. 170 drones, 30 cruise missiles, and 110 ballistic missiles. They were fired from different locations, from Iran, from Syria, from Iraq, and from Yemen. But Israel was ready for it. You see, this was a widely expected attack, a tit-for-tat response. Last week, Israel had struck Iran's embassy in Syria. They ended up killing top Iranian commanders, so Iran was always going to respond, which is why Israel and its allies were ready. They say around 99% of the projectiles were shot down, some over the Iraqi and Syrian airspace, the rest over Israel. It filled the night sky with explosions. Take a look. Now, 300 is a big number, but these drones and missiles caused very little damage. Around 12 people were injured and one girl was killed. Plus, a military base in southern Israel was slightly damaged. I guess the obvious question is how? It was a joint effort by Israel's allies, especially the US and the UK. Both countries had moved important assets to the region, the US and the UK. So when Iran attacked, they were ready. Fighter jets took off from undisclosed bases in the region. They shot down most of the drones before they reached the target. Even Jordan took down a few projectiles. Of course, some did make it to Israel, but those were shot down by the air defense system. And there are many layers to it. But this time, two of them were key. The Arrow system, which shoots down long-range missiles, and the Iron Dome, which shoots down short-range rockets. Both use the same concept: track a projectile, fire ammunition at it, and blow it up in the sky. It's costly, but clearly effective. But good defense was not the only reason for the limited damage. Iran's attack was half-hearted. They wanted to create a spectacle. They wanted to appease their domestic audience. But damage perhaps was not their goal. Iran's foreign minister has admitted this. He says Tehran had informed the US about the nature of its attacks.
We announced to the White House in a message this morning that our operations will be limited and minimal, with the aim of legitimate defense and punishment of the Israeli regime.
Which brings us to the reactions. The world is understandably worried because, damage or not, this attack is unprecedented. In the past, Iran has used proxies to strike Israel, like Hezbollah and Hamas. They have never used their own military. This is the first direct Iranian attack on Israel, which makes it very significant. That was also in fact reflected in the ground reactions. Iranians were over the moon. They took out bike rallies and marches in Tehran, and they called it a proud and happy moment.
We hope this attack continues to the point that Israel is destroyed.
We will never allow anyone to violate Iranian territory. Any enemy contemplating aggression against Iran will meet the same fate as Israel.
So celebrations in Iran, over in Israel, things were more subdued. Some said they were used to the rocket and missile barrage. Others were more wary.
Actually, all heard about the attack of Iran, but we're not afraid because we went to celebrate birthday of one of our friends, and we already got used to being attacked for the last 6 months.
The situation is really frightening because we're afraid of what happens and all of bombing and aircraft that are coming.
So what next? Iran says the operation is over and they clearly mean it. If they wanted escalation, this attack would have looked very different. Plus, life is slowly returning to normal. Last night, most countries in the region had shut their airspace, but now they're back up and running. Even Israel has reopened its airspace. Having said that, the danger has not passed. Far from it. A lot depends on Benjamin Netanyahu. His war cabinet has been asked to decide on a response. The question is, what will they choose? More escalation or a truce? Israel's own allies do not want an escalation. They have condemned Iran's missile attack, but they may not support retaliation. Look at the reaction so far. Joe Biden had a phone call with Netanyahu. He called Iran's attack brazen. He also promised ironclad support for Israel. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak released a similar statement. He called Iran's attack reckless. He also accused Tehran of sowing chaos in the region. So did German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. He said the attack was unjustifiable and irresponsible. So the West is firmly behind Israel. Maybe not on escalating the conflict, but definitely on condemning Iran.
If this attack had been successful, the fallout for regional stability would be hard to overstate. And we stand by the security of Israel and the wider region, which is of course important for our security here at home too.
This is an unjustifiable attack. This is a serious escalation of the situation, and it is in no way acceptable, understandable, or tolerable. Fortunately, the Israeli Air Defense Forces largely succeeded in fending off this attack, supported by the USA and partners also in the Arab world.
Now we come to the other camp. Russia and China, two countries that have close relations with Iran. Russia has expressed concern over the attack. They have advised restraint. But the statement also mentions Israel's strike on the Iranian consulate. So a bit of a balancing act there. Same with China. They too have called for restraint, but Beijing says it is a spillover of the Gaza conflict. So China is saying, fix Gaza first, the rest will fall in place. And what about India? New Delhi has called for de-escalation and restraint. It has advised a return to diplomacy. Much like Arab nations, Saudi Arabia wants the UN Security Council to take the lead. It has asked Israel and Iran to avoid war. But will they listen? The next few hours will be very important. Israel has requested a meeting of the United Nations Security Council. It will be convening in a few hours from now. Meanwhile, Biden has gathered the G7 leaders. If they together put pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, they can prevent an escalation perhaps. Of course, a minor fallout is still expected. Israel has already struck eastern Lebanon. They're going after Iran's proxy, the Hezbollah. But that conflict has not boiled over yet. Whether it does or not depends on Israel's next move.